This is number 3 on the externalities sheet, and it's going to ask us to use the graphs from above and explain in which situations it would be appropriate to use a Pigouvian tax and the size of the tax, and then when would it be appropriate to use a Pigouvian subsidy and how large should the subsidy be. So I'm going to kind of copy the graphs from above. Looking at the negative externality, so just looking here, we have the private marginal benefit, the private marginal cost. With a negative externality, the cost to society is higher, and therefore the market is going to do too much. We should be stopping at this lower optimal quantity. So this is the case of a negative externality. When we're doing too much of an activity, then we should tax it to reduce it. So with a negative externality, we're going to end up using a Pigouvian tax. So named after this guy named Pigou, who was an economist. And so the idea is that, we want to stop at this socially optimal quantity. That's our goal. So how much should the tax be? We kind of want people to, quote unquote, internalize the externality or feel the cost that they're imposing on others. So if we're starting here at this private marginal cost, if you impose a tax, and if the tax is exactly equal to the amount of the external cost, then we will end up back here on this line, right? So with the tax, what's happening is you're shifting the supply curve up by the amount of the tax, and therefore we're kind of feeling like we're along this. We can move to this new intersection, and we can end up being at our optimal quantity. So that's if we are experiencing a negative externality, which means that the market is overproducing this good. If we tax it and we set the tax equal to exactly the amount we want this curve to be shifted up to feel the external cost that's being imposed on others, we can end up back at the optimal quantity. All right, so that's a Pigouvian tax. The tax should be equal to the amount of the external cost that led to this negative externality, this market failure. Let's set those over here. And now if we're going to look at a positive externality, so again we have price per unit, quantity down here. Our normal demand and supply would be private marginal benefit and private marginal cost, leading to this market quantity. In the case of a positive externality, we're seeing that actually the benefit to society is greater than the benefit to any individual. So we could have this marginal social benefit that's higher here. And this is really our goal. This is where we want to end up, at this optimal quantity. So with a positive externality, we want to encourage more of this because the market is stopping short. So instead of instead of taxing, we're going to offer a subsidy to try to encourage more of this activity to happen. So with a positive externality, we're going to give a Pigouvian subsidy, and that should be equal to the amount of the external benefit. So if there's some spillover benefit, we want these individuals to feel the benefit so they actually end up doing more of this activity to lead us to the socially optimal quantity. And if that subsidy is exactly equal to the amount of that external benefit, however much that line was shifted up by, then we end up back along this line, we end up at this socially optimal quantity. So the Pigouvian subsidy should be exactly equal to the amount of the external benefit. And then we could end up back at the optimal quantity, this optimal quantity. So that's the way we could use Pigouvian tax and Pigouvian subsidy to correct for negative and positive externalities.